collective memory is very powerful, and imagery is a way that you can reach everyone, right? It's beyond language. That's the point, really, isn't it? This is so exciting because it's actually the first time that I've toured the show and walked around and talked about the paintings since we've hung them. But we're starting off with a recent painting, a round robin. It's actually a sort of homage to my late father or stepfather. It kind of sets the tone for the exhibition because it's sort of on the tightrope of abstraction and figuration. In a way, it sets the tone because it's a painting that invites a sort of meandering gaze, because I really want to invite people into each painting and be able to wander through. And, as many of the works are called nature walks. So this one it sort of fragments memories. My stepfather grew up in India, so it's sort of trying to bring together his memories in a way of sort of India mixed up with Surrey. But not in a literal way. I wasn't actually even sure I was going to talk about that, but there you are. His name is Robin. The whole exhibition becomes a sort of nature walk, or a walk. Quote from Paul Klee, the painter who talked about taking a line for a walk. And really that's what these paintings want to do for the eye. Landscape, nature, gardens and parks have always been part of my sort of painterly language. I came on a site visit and it just seemed to really make sense to focus the show on my nature paintings. I like the idea of a sort of after image, of the park around is kind of in your mind because you've just come through it, and then the paintings sort of throw that back at you. And then hopefully then when you go back into the park, perhaps the paintings will have slightly changed your way of looking at it. I love the idea that people will spend a long time in here. And I think this room in particular encourages not just long looking, but changes of the way you look. So intimate looking versus, the big picture. And that's another thing that really preoccupies me, is the sort of changing scale. The small paintings are just as much part of my painting practice as the large ones. I work on every scale. People always ask, are the small ones studies for the large ones? And they're not at all. So the small ones are very much their own thing. Obviously, you have to go close up to the small ones, so then hopefully people who might ordinarily keep a safe distance from a painting will realise you can go in close. I like the idea that looking at the painting is very similar to the act of making it, so that in a way your eye mimics the process of how the brush went. Take one colour and sort of follow it through the paintings with your eye, so you sort of see the connection from one to the next and sort of think, okay, where did I see this yellow? And you can sort of see it recurring in different paintings. I don't necessarily have a specific story I'm trying to tell, but then every now and again I'll get my teeth into a specific subject, like a couple. This is 2004. This is maybe my favorite painting. And there are two paintings of couples. The second one, Canopy, I don't think you see the figures as clearly, but once you've seen them, it's hard not to. There are two faces in here, a very similar composition. It's funny that you say it reminded you of seeing a couple kissing. In the course of my conversations with Lizzie Carey-Thomas, the curator, and with Hans Ulrich Oberst, we were talking about how there's actually this very active nightlife in the park where there's still a lot of, there are lovers in the park, and it is very romantic and sort of hot, I guess. And we also included drawings in this room and works on paper. All of them are copied from an outside source. I really wanted to simplify the language of forms I was using, to decide in advance that there was a certain code almost, or a visual language, to almost like a pictogram, So instead of thinking you've got to reinvent something from scratch every time, you're like, okay, if it's a tree, it either looks, there are 3 kinds of tree. You know, there's this kind, there's that kind, and then there's that kind. A lot of the drawings are straightforward copies, but it's really how I learn how to draw is through copying others. And it seems very obvious, but it's like covering a song, really. You know, you learn, or playing someone else's music, that's how you're going to learn how to do it. And the reason I wanted to include drawings in the show is I feel like they're a really helpful way into reading the painting, especially, you know, when the subject isn't as clear. We called the show Picture Making, partly to do with using children's illustration. I've been thinking about illustration a lot and how picture books, as they used to be called, and children's books, are probably most people's first entry into the world of images. They're so vivid when you're a child, aren't they? And you're sort of carried into another world. That's what's so great about it. You remember when you're a kid, and if the book doesn't have pictures, you don't want to read it. I think this is a good example of how a casual observer might not notice that there's this funny little, I don't even know who she is. She's just appeared, this sort of, she's like Thumbelina. And this is called Froggy Would a Wooing Go. And it's a nursery rhyme about a frog who's sort of out on the town. It's sort of like a Rake's Progress, but for frogs. In my work, I've always tried to get the dichotomy of how the world is so evil, but it's so beautiful, and that you can't really get away from that fact. And it's something I've always tried to sort of have embedded into the work, so that without depicting atrocities, which I want there to always be a sense of, you know, underlying darkness. You know how when you go on a walk, you know, it's the most beautiful day in the world, but inevitably you'll stumble on something gross or something, you know, whether it's some discarded knickers in the bushes or a dead thing, and that suddenly, you know, there's just this constant reminder of either pain, death, violence, even in nature. In a way, the last painting in the show, it's called Hurry Up Please, It's Time, but it's based on a detail from a Turner painting, which has been used by other artists as well, including Lucian Freud and Jutta Kurta. But it's this very striking image of dead fish on a beach. So I'd come across this image and it was just very evocative of things sort of scattered on this very plain ground. The act of painting itself and drawing can be very difficult, but it can also give great joy. Again, I really like the idea of it being playful and uplifting and joyful. Obviously, we need any upbeat distractions we possibly can at the moment. You know, it's such a very, very difficult time. Hopefully it's like a walk in the park. It's not that I want it to be escapist, but I think anything visual, and just like how a walk in the park can put you in a better mood, that, I mean, for me and for those of us who love looking at pictures, it's just another world, isn't it?